Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Music Den. I'm your host Armando Venditti, hoping you guys are having a good day and above all else that you are looking after yourselves and one another. Today, ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome back to the channel Mr. Jim Bricker. How's it going? Jim?
Hello, hello, hello. Doing good. How are you?
Doing good. Still in the winter wonderland here, but doing good. Doing good. And the one and only Mr. Ken Cheshire.
Mm, Thank you, Armando, for having me back. And may I say, most people that know me are very glad that I'm one and only. So,
There you go. There you go. One is enough.
well, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with another installment of Album Anniversaries. Today, we are looking at albums that are celebrating the 30th anniversary. Albums released in 1995. We have four albums to look at today. Whew, what a list. All right. Now, we're going to go in order of release dates. The first album we're going to look at is a release from King Crimson called Thrack, released April 4th, 1995. Has a playing time of 56 minutes and 35 seconds. It is the band's 11th release. It was recorded from October 24th to December 4th of 1994, released through Virgin Records, produced by King Crimson and David Bottrell. And before I give you my opinion, I was brought up right by my mama, issue mama, and I will let my two co-hosts go first. So who will I pick on first? Jim.
I'll go first.
Armando. Okay.
Yeah.
You and I, Armando, did a King Crimson Top 10 episode a while back. And for me, Thrack sat in at number 11. Missed the countdown altogether.
Mhm.
Um, hmm, I have a lot of mixed feelings about this album. And that primarily has to do with that by the time I really got into King Crimson, and was really actively going to concerts and stuff, this was the King Crimson that appeared at the time. I missed the '80s version, seeing them live and whatnot, and from '84 on, I started to build an appreciation and a knowledge of their back catalog. And so by the time '94 rolled around with the Vroom EP and then now the Thrack album in '95, I was like all prim mindset. I was really ready to go to um, just embrace this sucker and enjoy it. And I did. I mean, King Crimson did three swings through the San Francisco Bay Area between '95 and '96, and I saw them three times during this tour, once for each swing, including front row at the Zellerbach in Berkeley, which was kind of the equivalent of being sonically assaulted. But man, that was glorious. Just all that energy, just boom, right in the
Mhm.
face.
Mhm.
However, time, I don't think, has been particularly kind to this record, not because of the performances so much or the songs. Um, I think just about the arrangement of the album overall. I just don't think it's really quite a cohesive unit. It's kind of more like four EPs stapled together.
Stitched
And I
together.
think a lot of that has to do with the circular arrangement of the album. I mean, I get what Fripp was trying to do, where the album kind of starts with Vroom and its coda, and it ends with Vroom Vroom and its coda. So I get that there's kind of this, beginning and end cycle that goes on, but they kind of keep that in going in the entire album, where it's kind of like, a circle within a circle within a circle within a circle, and it really just kind of, I don't know, bugs me a little bit that there's just not a more fluid, coherent, organic sweep to the album.
Yeah.
um Now, as far as the songs, themselves, I would call this like industrial prog meets Beatles-esque pop. You've got some
Yeah.
things on here like uh, Dinosaur and the conclusion of People. The ballads on here, Walking on Air and One Time, I think are fantastic. And then there's also some, you know, I'll call it dirty funk and some soundscape stuff and haikus happening throughout the album, which are kind of nice in and of themselves. Um, Being kind of a drum freak, I love the baboom piece that Bruford and Mastelotto do, and to me that's kind of like it was certainly the highlight of the shows. I don't know if it's the highlight of the album, but to me, as far as a King Crimson album goes, this just kind of skips off the surface. I mean, I like each of the songs individually, but as a unit, as a cohesive thing, I just it's good, but it's not the crim that I know that can be achieved. And yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. I forgot to mention this, but I should mention this. Playing on the album, and I completely slipped my mind. You have Adrian Belew on electric and acoustic guitars and lead vocals, Robert Fripp on electric guitars, mellotron, and soundscapes, uh, Trey Gunn on Chapman stick and backing vocals, Tony Levin on bass guitar, electric upright bass and backing vocals, Bill Bruford and Pat Massolano on acoustic and electric drums and percussion. So,
It's the double trio, as
yeah,
Fripp called it.
yes. So I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I forgot to mention it. I should have mentioned it before when I introduced the album. My apologies. I'm an idiot. Forgive me. Moving on to Ken and your opinion on the album.
Metal prog without screaming vocals. Um,
It's very concise. Moving on.
uh, it's interesting looking, listening to it. I listened to it on Spotify. It was interesting to see the difference um, of the number of listens of Walking on Air and One Time, the play, how many plays to that compared to how many plays of the other songs. It's not even close. Um, Starting off, with Room, my note says substance without melody. Um, Jim, you said you like all these songs individually. It was just, the package, so to speak.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I wouldn't even take the songs. Honestly, this makes me not want to listen to any other King Crimson. Um,
King Crimson album.
I
Okay.
just really,
Yeah.
I, it, yeah, the melody progressions, whereas I appreciate the guitars, um, because that's what I noticed first of all in Room. Um, the duetting on the guitars. I really did not care for um, the melodic structure that they were doing. It just, I don't know. I can't, after listening to it twice, I still couldn't tell you a melody from
I,
from any of the songs.
I get that.
So, yeah, this is a no for me.
Okay. Um,
It would have been 11 on my list too if I would have been there.
yeah, I kind of get that feeling too. 15 tracks, seven of which are instrumentals or interludes, as I'd call them. To me, this is more of it, it has a slightly industrial tinge to it,
Slightly.
very slight industrial
I'd
tinge
say more than that, yeah.
on the guitars. I'm trying to, me, I'm very demure when I want to be. Um, um, I songs like, Room that start the album, in my notes I have a prominent bass, strong guitar chords, nice breakdown sections. Um, again, slightly industrial feel. Um, and the songs that do have vocals, it took me a while to realize it was Adrian Belew singing.
Really?
Yeah. Um, the guitar is prominent on this album, very much
Very.
so. But to me, there's really no direction to it. And like, where's the melody? Where's the composition overall? I mean, songs like "Walking on Air," I like, it might not have a gentle guitar chords, ethereal mellotron and synth use, rhythmic percussion on it. But when the guitars do come in, they do have a really good thick guitar tone, like really fat, meaty guitar tone that comes in
Yeah.
the tracks. Um, Baboom, I like because it's very percussive and there's prominent bass on it. But overall, if I was to pick an album to put this in my like pick an album for my top 10, I don't think this made my top 10. No, I think this
You don't have the box set?
no, I don't. It's not an album I would go back to, which is a shame. It's a real shame. So, yeah.
I think live the Thrack experience worked much better.
Uh, well, I mean, you were there, so you would know, but this
Yeah,
just,
as an album, I think I think there's much better albums that represent King Crimson than this one.
it just seems that they were like trying to find their way. Do we fit into the industrial? Do we fit into um, the rock of today of the 90s? And even one thing I did notice, the snare drum sound, the same,
Mhm.
the same on every song.
What do you mean the same?
Just the same drum snare sound, just like there's no variation on it.
That's interesting. So you often will hear an album where there's a variety of snare sounds from the in the same recording?
On the same album, whether they use brushes or they use a different, yeah, just production technique. It just to me, all the snare drum sound the same on this album to me. I
Okay.
mean,
Yeah.
the drumming can be sparse in some spots, but when you hear the snare drum, to me, it sounds identical to the track before.
Could have been mixed too
Okay.
high. Yeah.
Could
Could
have
have
been.
been. And of course, Bruford has a very distinctive crack in his playing. And so that's maybe what's taking the lead on the drum parts. I think that I know that when he and Pat Mastelotto were sort of planning around the drum parts, this whole idea of dual drumming, it's like the quick comment they had between each other is like, okay, one of us is going to be Elvin Jones and one is going to be Ringo. And I think it kind of depended on which song you were at,
Yeah,
like who was sort of providing just sort of the main beat that the song would follow and who was going to provide the color
yeah,
drumming. And I think a lot of the things that are distinctive and sound the same are the ones where Bruford is playing the Ringo role and he's just really, you know,
yeah,
making things propel forward. But
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. We must move on, ladies and gentlemen. Our second album on the list of four here, Vertical Horizon with Running on Ice, released April 7th, 1995. Their second release, released through RCA Records, produced by John Alagia, Doug Derryberry, and lead singer Matt Scannell. 14 tracks in total with a playing time of 62 minutes and 32 seconds. Now, a little background. I was aware of Vertical Horizon with the third release, Everything You Want. I personally think I love Everything You Want. Side one of that album is banger, all the way through. but that's just my opinion, you see. So I'll let my co-host go first. Ken, what is your opinion?
Okay, so listening through these four albums, I got to Vertical Horizon. My immediate thought was, this is the best album I ever heard. But then I thought about it, that's just because I got finished listening to Thrack. Um, first of
Because
all,
Context.
my my two major points is that it's very melodic,
yes,
and it has great vocals and guitar work. Um, the
yeah,
worst thing I can say about it is just too long. I think it's 14, you said 14 tracks, I believe.
14 tracks in total.
Too much. It's too much at one time for me. Um, because like a lot of music from the 90s, um, a lot of the songs are very will be very melodic and harmonic and blah blah blah, but there's still the source material. The songs themselves are very mediocre. Um, I prefer their the earlier stuff. This was what, did you say this was their fourth album?
No, this was their
The
second
second.
album.
Second?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that destroys that theory. But it was just, it was just. Uh,
Put a bullet in
I think if it had been like 10 songs, that would
Yes.
have been fine.
Yeah,
I think a
fair enough.
10 song, cut.
Fair enough.
Um, but I was, but overall, and looking back at it in proper perspective, um, good work, good work. Not not super outstanding, but very nice, very nice.
All right. Jim.
I gotta echo what my friend Mr. Cheshire says about this. I think this album does suffer from CD abuse.
Yep.
We've got 72 minutes of space. Let's use all of it. No, you don't have to. Um, there there is a lot of great guitar, great vocals, some nice melodies on here. Um, I approach this album with everything you want in my head.
Exactly.
And when I first, and that's like you mentioned, that's the subsequent album that came out in 99. This is 95. um so when I first heard it, this was not what I expected, and my first reaction to it was, what the heck is this? Because I came into it with these expectations that I just kind of said, all right, I'm don't think I'm giving this a fair shot. I need to sort of put it aside and come back to it with a bit more objectivity about what's going on. And and it is well done. I think there's too much of it, but it is pleasant enough. But I don't think there's anything here that's like really sticky either.
Nothing
There's
stands out. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the melodies are nice, but there's nothing in here that makes me want to go back to it and listen to it again. It kind of reminds me, Armando, of when we talked about the Gowan album,
Okay.
from like 91, I think it was, or 92. And I
93.
don't remember
Yeah.
the title of it.
But you can call me Larry. Yeah. 93.
Yeah,
You can call me Larry. Yeah.
it's nice, but again, there's nothing that I really wanted to go back
Yeah.
um, to it. And I guess the overall feeling of how I would describe this record to someone, to sort of put it in some context that they might recognize, here in your head, if you will, James Taylor meets Rush, but you're not getting the best of James Taylor and the best of Rush as part of that connection.
Okay. I
Nice,
get it.
nice melodies, but not like James Taylor's best.
Yeah.
Nice lyrics and kind of maybe thematic direction of what the song is trying to say, the lyrics are trying to say, but not like the best of Neil Pearce. So it's kind of like, you're looking at some strange amalgam of the two, but you got to really squint to make out what's
To
there.
see
It
what it
doesn't
is. Yeah.
doesn't strike you. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it's I don't it's not something where it's like, oh, I want 68 minutes of my life back. But by the same token, I'm not going to invest another 68 minutes in it down the road.
Okay. No, I got you. Um, for me, I didn't even know this album existed until you gave me the list. Yeah, there's something missing here. There is something missing. I was expecting everything you want. I do like the fact that Keith Kane, you know, co-lead vocalist, that at this point in time, it was still a band. Whereas going into Everything You Want, Matt Scannell basically took over everything. And Keith Kane was relegated to one track on Everything You Want, Shackled, which is track 11. I do like the work, the guitar work that's done in this album. This album is listed as an acoustic album. I do think that they make the acoustic guitars sing on this album when they do their solos. Very skillfully done. I do think I like the fact that Keith Kane has more writing credits on this album than Everything You Want, and he does more lead vocals. Too long. It should have been at least 12 or 10 tracks, at the very most, or at the very least. I think that it meanders to a point after, say, track 10. It's too long. And there's just something missing. Uh,
Mhm.
it,
I felt like I was on an episode of Friends.
yes,
Sitting in the
yes,
coffee shop, and there's over in the corner, there's this little bitty stage with two guys with acoustic guitars,
yeah.
and they're playing and singing their heart out, but you know, those of us with our coffee sitting on the sofa trying to visit, we
And,
have to talk louder,
and it's
so.
and it's funny that you mentioned Friends because Everything You Want, the single, was featured on Friends, right?
Oh, okay.
Okay. But with this album, they haven't arrived yet. Something is missing in the songs. Melodically, it's great. Um, Angel Without Wings is a good track. Uh, but there's just something off here.
It's unremarkable.
Good word to use. Good. Yes, yes, very much so. All right. Um,
It's a five-syllable word.
yes.
We'll get into syllables later.
Okay. Okay.
Thanks for
Okay.
checking me on that, Ken.
All right. Okay. Moving on. Our third album in our list, Sixpence None the Richer, with This Beautiful Mess. Uh, Released April 18th, 1995. Produced by Armand John Petrie. It's the band's second release for REX Recordings with a playing time of just under 50 minutes at 49 minutes and 39 seconds. Jim?
Me, yes. So people will undoubtedly know Sixpence None the Richer from like Kiss Me and their covers of Don't Dream It's Over and There She Goes. Um, and when those songs, came on the radio, I was kind of like, this is not the Sixpence that I'm used to. This album was my introduction to Sixpence None the Richer. And I've got to say, for me, even listening to it, last month and, subsequent little tidbits here and there, I think this is a really good to great, mid 90s rock record. Um, I think the so just to talk about a few of the tracks that kind of start off. Um, Angel Tread, which is a lead off track. has these chiming guitars and kind of some, I'll call them modern rock rave ups in there. Um, Love Salvation, the second tune, has this galloping bass and guitar with lots of like heavy delay and reverb on it. So you get already some really good variety between song one and song two.
Mhm.
The third song, Bleeding, has this kind of delay and reverb. I'll call it like industrial noise in the background of it, but yet it's still melodic.
Yeah,
Um, and it's got these, killer guitar hooks in the chorus that really, make an impact. One more song with some detailed comments. Within a Room is, kind of brings the noise down a little bit. It's got this gently funky bass that kind of has this semi-haunted feel to it throughout, but it's kind of um, a slower tempo jangle pop kind of tune. This song and the one before it is where Lee Nash, who's a girl, um, you know, has kind of her
glad you
vocals
would.
start to come into the, well, for people who don't know, they might think Lee as just, like Lee Sklar. So give me that one, would you? Um, so
No,
I think one of the difficult tightropes of this album is the mix of Lee's voice with the instrumentation, because Lee has a very, um, soft
approach.
vocal quality,
Yeah,
very, very feminine, and but she sings, very, very well, but it's hard to find the right mix of being able to hear her vocals if there's not a lot of space in the music.
exactly, exactly.
um so that's kind of like the thing that I have sort of a constant battle with in this album. So for like tunes like Angel Tread, um and the Garden, Lee's vocals don't stand out like they should because they're kind of just overpowered by what's happening sonically. But, Circle of Error, Maybe Tomorrow, those are both some outstanding songs where I think there's just the right balance of Lee carrying the melodic center of the song, and the instruments being, not a support role, but it all works together at the right level, if you will. So
Yeah.
yeah, this is just a really, really good record. I'd forgotten how great it is, but I enjoy the heck out of this monster. I'd listen to it again any old time.
Mhm. Okay.
Jim, what did you think about the song Thought Menagerie? You didn't
Oh,
mention that.
very nice. My very nice on that.
That one, that one stuck out to my ear. But
Hmm.
I thought that the one that really made the other one that really caught my attention was Love is Salvation. Um,
Yeah.
it's very interesting what's going on there instrumentally, especially in
Hmm.
the,
Great bass work
Yeah.
on that.
I would love to see what the bass player, what's going on with their fingers at this point. Um, yeah, I hadn't heard this one before. Um, Starting off with Angel Tread kind of confused me a little bit with that, going into the heavy sound is,
Yeah.
so not knowing if the whole album is going to be that way or but that was seemed to be
I kind of
uh
thought the same
the one
thing.
Outlander, yeah, that was like that. But yeah, it kind of surprised me. I think maybe that vocal bit would have not been so much if Lee had a voice like for instance Harriet Wheeler, who has a very similar timbre, but she's got a little bit more strength.
From the Sundays.
from the Sundays. Yeah,
Okay, yeah, yeah. Good call.
Okay. Well, I hear what you're saying about the vocals. The only point of reference I can think of is the only female singer that I could, I'm going to mention her name again. People are going to, the only female singer that I could think of that could, I guess, complement what's going on musically with I guess the heaviness of the arrangements would be Lisa Dalbello. Because she has a very soft, she can have a very soft, warm quality to her vocal, but when need be, she can crack you in the ribs
sure.
with her piercing vocal delivery. She's got that soaring ability, and she
Hmm.
can rise above what's going on musically, but and also complement what's happening with the guitars, especially on Angel Tread. This is the first time I've ever heard this album. Uh, I'm used to Kiss Me.
Sure.
And there she goes, and that softer approach musically, as opposed to what I'm hearing on this album. Not that it's bad, it's not bad. I need to sit with this more. It's not a bad album. I'm going to
Hmm.
stress that it
Yeah,
is not a bad album, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just saying that I need to sit with it more to get more acclimatized to it. Um,
Yeah, I mean the gentle acoustic guitars and like the
yes,
accordion that
yes,
sort of make the color and timbre of Kiss Me,
are
that's
not here.
like they're not here. There are hints of it here and there, and there are some, kind of nice jangle pop, um, slower tempo kind of tunes, but it's kind of like a rock and electric guitar record that,
It is.
at
It
some
is.
points kind of, does it sound like U2? Does it sound like My Bloody Valentine? Does it, is
Yeah.
it sound like the Smiths? Yes, 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 at times.
Exactly. And again, this was also still at a time where record companies gave you the time to develop your sound, where you could have one or two records to sort of find your footing musically as to where you were going to
Yeah.
go with your type of music. Um, and it's a good album. Again, I do need to sit with it some more. Um, I don't want to say it's a bad. I don't want to go off on a tangent and say it's a bad album, because you know what? I don't know enough about this album or about the band. I know the hits that, Kiss Me and There She Goes, and but I like these vocals. I do believe that sometimes she does get lost in the mix
Yeah.
in terms of the guitars that, the heaviness of the guitars that come in, like on Angel Tread, etc. So.
yeah,
I still would love to hear Del Bello just cut through that. Like, I mean, guys, if you want to hear again with Del Bello, listen to Miss Sun with Boss Skaggs, uh, and Start Today from Victor Alex Lifeson's project. Um, that track to give you an example of Del Bello and what she could do musically, vocally. But this Sixpence None the Richer, this beautiful mess is a good album. I just need to give it more time, you know. All right, our final album on this list, Mob Deep, the infamous, released April 22nd, 1995. Produced by Mob Deep, released through BMG RCA Loud Recordings, uh, recorded in 94 to 95. Has a playing time of 66 minutes and 51 seconds. It is the band's second release. Jim,
I'm gonna let Ken go first.
Ken.
to quote one of my favorite YouTubers, no,
Oh, I'm
you know,
flattered. Go on.
just just I cannot attest to the quality. It's just not my genre.
Yeah.
So yeah,
May I go next?
uh,
Sure.
No, I can't. I tried. I I can't. I can't get through. I couldn't get through this album. I couldn't get through it. I don't believe in using certain words. I find it very offensive. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. And that's all I'm going to say. Jim,
Where to begin on this?
begin.
Um, let's begin at the beginning. So, Mobb Deep is made up of two New York-based rappers, Prodigy and Havoc. Stellar names. Good jobs, Mom. Um, they craft a really dark and somber picture of inner city life with this album, and with these cutthroat lyrics and some really chilling beats. And while it could be really easy to write this off as just shallow gangster core, with all the violence that comes with it, and there's a lot of violence in it. This second album from them is most impactful when it puts the listener, us, you, into their shoes, kind of pulling you into the scenes that they've lived through and drawing you to empathize with them, despite all the rough language and the hard as nails stuff on the surface. But, don't make no mistake about it. These guys are no slouches when it comes to spine-chilling threats and like gritty graphic depictions of violence. The album's most iconic song, which is called Shook Ones Part 2, is a perfect example, with these guys just ruthlessly putting down anyone who talks a big game but can't handle the grim realities of their world. This is just delivering devastating bars and unforgettable hooks over this haunting blend of like sampled pianos and growling bass and atmospheric effects all the way through. I mean, just like Survival of the Fittest and Up North Trip, which follow kind of a similar formula, excuse me, despite having their own, uniqueness to it. This most legendary song from this band, is just this big warning. But this album is just not all about that. Um, it does have more to offer beyond just posturing and grit. Um, there's a song called "QU Hectic" on here that seems like another, you know, threatening opus on the surface of it, but Prodigy and Havoc, what they're really doing is focusing on their surroundings over this, menacing synths and echoey saxes that make this kind of a more mournful song. Where the violence is explicitly tied to the pressure and trauma of being on the streets. Um, Cradle to the Grave and Drink Away the Pain feature excellent guest verses by Q-Tip, who is from A Tribe Called Quest, and there's other great guests on this album with Nas, Raekwon, and Ghostface Killah. But this just explores more of how the circumstances of New York push them to find a way to cope and fight back. Um, Two more quick things. This isn't my
Well,
favorite 90s East Coast hip hop album, but I can see just how essential The Infamous is to the evolution of rap. And most of Mob Deep's content feels just as vivid as today as it must have been back then. Now, having said all that, those are not my words. Everything I just read to you is a review that my son wrote about this album. And he gave me permission to kind of share this on here
John
because,
Michael?
frankly, John Michael, because frankly, I'm a big solid no, like you guys. I tried to get into this too, as being noteworthy for what kind of an album that it is, and saying, okay, maybe there's an inroad that I can find to this. But I couldn't find an on-ramp into it. It's got samples from Al Green and Patrice Rushen and Quincy Jones and the Spinners and Grover Washington Jr. and Herbie Hancock and Miles and Les McCann and Teddy Pendergrass and all that stuff in it. But you know, you can't even appreciate that like you can on, say, Beastie Boys' Paul's Boutique, because you've got to swim through S this and F that and N the other thing. And, you just can't appreciate what it is when you're swimming in a morass of stuff. So I'm a big fat no, and I'm done.
Can go first.
Who's the audience?
Great point. It must be those who are in the hood.
Okay, then.
I,
For me, using derogatory words to describe something is a turnoff. Just like there are using the N word, I will not say it, to me is the same as using the word cripple to describe somebody with a physical disability. I refuse. I said it now, and I'm sorry that I did, but I can't um, justify that language whatsoever. And that's why it turned me off big time. I couldn't do it. I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. I can't. I can't. There's no relevance to it. And I don't subscribe that it's okay for someone in my position to use the C word just like it's okay for someone of color to use the N word. It's not okay. It's disgusting. It is demeaning. And there's no place for it. So that's all I'm going to say about that.
yeah, I mean, I think, Ken, your question about who is the audience for this is, extremely on point, because it may be a gripping, harrowing, vivid, full color picture of the reality of that life, but and it sure sounds like an ugly life. But the listening to stuff that's ugly, just like looking at an ugly painting or something, it's clearly not for everyone. And I just I wanted, as I when I first listened to the album, I'm like, oh brother, here we go. And I kind of had a sense that you guys would sort of feel the same way about it. And I wanted to present, another opinion of the record, just as something to kind of point out that, people have wildly different perspectives on music. And I just thought it was interesting just to sort of put that out there. I mean, I wouldn't recommend this album to anyone, but yet there are others who feel like there is something valid to it. I just don't share that opinion at all.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Okay, so um, much respect to John Michael. Um, is this
mhm.
album in his record collection? Is this something that he goes and listens to?
He listens to rap.
Okay.
But he'll listen to Stan Getz right after that. He's got a pretty deep bench in terms
So
of what he
yeah,
listens to.
eclecticism for him is the key. Variety is the key. Um,
Yeah,
in terms of
Black
his
Black
music.
Midi. We
Ah!
listened to Black Midi because of John Michael.
Well,
Now,
it's
Michael, we need to talk. Like we really do.
but
Sure, you're a fine individual, but we need to talk. I swear to God. I swear.
so what decade did he grow up in?
Uh, he was born in 99.
Okay. Well, you see, this is what was on the radio.
Well, yeah,
This
but
is
this
this
isn't
is
a
I
radio
know,
thing.
but yeah, but hear me out. We, the three of us,
Yes.
me being the oldest, Jim, you being the middle child, and Armando being the baby, we connect so much with what we grew up listening to, and which was, on the radio. We didn't have rap. The what we struggled with was disco. However, for
I
John
didn't struggle
Michael's
with disco. I love
generation,
disco, but
yeah.
I get what you're saying.
So for John Michael, um, rap is just another genre, just like, you know, alternative and pop and stuff like that. So it's what amazes me. I love watching reaction videos on YouTube. It amazes me these young adults do a reaction video to some of the greatest classic rock songs of all time.
Okay, this is gonna get me in trouble. But where is the originality in the composition when you look at the songwriting credits and there are like 20, okay, I'm exaggerating, but like 15 to 20 songwriting credits that go back to Grover Washington.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's because they have to give credit to the samples
I, I,
that are
I
there. But
understand that, but my point is that where is the originality when you've got writing credits going back to Quincy Jones and Grover
Mhm.
Washington, and
They don't think twice about it because for them it's the norm.
but that's what I mean. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, the
I,
creativity comes in, from like it's like taking a set of Lego bricks and how can I reassemble them?
yeah, yeah. It's like
And I mentioned Paul's Boutique is a fantastic example of
yeah.
sort of like understanding the cool greatness that can kind of come from doing that well.
You see, I say that that's the exception to the rule because seeing the Beastie Boys being able to play instruments on stage with Elvis Costello on SNL. So
Yep.
you do have musicianship.
Mhm.
Do you see
But
what I mean?
let me go. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I want to kind of rewind the tape to what Ken was saying about radio. So radio has never really, I'm picking on my son here. Radio was never a
We
big
love you,
thing in
John
my
Michael.
house
We really
growing
do.
up.
Yeah.
So anything that John Michael discovered, he got from the osmosis of me and his mom, mostly me. Um, and then as he grew up, friends of his, Fall Out Boy was like an early thing that he listened to,
Yeah.
a lot as he was sort of discovering his own thing. And things like rap and whatnot came, I believe, during college. And again, that's just talking with other music lovers and him getting introduced to it that way. So, it's the culture that he grew up in was like, nowhere near as influenced musically by the radio as it was for the three of us. Like we talked about on another episode we did, the radio back in our day, you would hear Stevie Wonder, and then you would hear Thin Lizzy, and then you would hear Marshall Tucker, and then you would hear ABBA. I mean,
And then Charlie
it was
Daniels. Yeah, yeah.
glorious,
Yeah. Yeah.
So
No, I get it. I get it 100%. And here's a question I'm going to put out there before we end this episode. And you have to think about this. When did we get old? Don't answer. Don't
When
answer.
we
We'll come
blinked,
back in another episode and answer that question for you guys.
we got old when we blinked.
There you go. There you go. All right. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Album anniversaries. Albums are celebrating the 30th anniversary, released in 1990, April of 1995. Please put down in the comments below your views on this wild tangent filled episode, of the albums that we presented to you. And your views on these albums that we talked about. Again, no right or wrong answers, just opinion. And that's what we're here for. And again, I wish to stress that we are not music experts in any shape, form, or fashion. We just know what we like and what we don't like. Okay. So please chime in with your comments. I want to thank both Jim and Ken for coming along with me on this ride. And we will be back with more episodes. Please look after yourselves and one another. Please click like and subscribe and hit the notification bell to keep yourselves on top of any new content we've got coming up. We've got more shows that we're working on. I'm still working on the idea of doing Attack of the Killer B-sides, where I'm going to be looking at classic albums, where we're going to be focusing on side two, and where all songs on that side two or side B are killer, no filler. All right. So that's coming up, and we've got more episodes that we're going to be working on, and we'll be bringing them to you as soon as we possibly can. All right. Please look after yourselves and one another. We'll see you soon with more shows. Bye for now.